you plan when you go on a long distance trip? Today we're going to talk about it. Definitely need your feedback. When you go on a long distance trip, do you make a plan or do you just wing it? So we're going to talk about today's video. What's up guys, Chef here, Riding Free. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. I certainly appreciate you stopping by. And yes, today we're going to talk about whether you make a plan when you go on a long distance trip or not. You know, as a biker, there's a saying, it's not the destination, it's the ride. Now, if you're planning a long distance trip and you're going to a specific place, do you plan your trip? And I would say like probably 90% of the people that I've ever talked to in my lifetime of being on a motorcycle, most people will have some sort of plan, and I don't know if you want to use that specific word, but at least they'll have some kind of idea of where they're going, even if it is something like a day trip somewhere. Most people usually pick out kind of where they want to go. You know, Harley dealership, an event, bike rally, you're going on vacation, you're going camping, whatever the case may be. Most people will typically have some sort of plan about where they're going. And yes, it is not truly the destination, it is the ride getting there that we all enjoy. Now, I do know that some people are like, nope, I'll go ride for X period of time, you know, a week, and I'll just get on the bike and I'll head a specific direction and I'll go explore. And when I'm tired, I'll stop and sleep. And when I'm eating, you know, and getting gas, all that stuff is just kind of like along the way, and I found cool places. And I think that's awesome. I have never really done like a long distance trip with that kind of mentality. Most of the time when I plan, it is I'm going to this destination, and along the way, if I see cool stuff, I'll stop, or, you know, I'll have places that I'll look at ahead of time and decide that I want to stop. So my idea, my opinion is most of the time I will have some sort of action plan as to where I'm going and how I'm going to get there. So today we're going to talk about considerations for long distance travel. And I know a lot of people got a lot of experience, and that's part of the thing that I really like to do with my channel is I want your feedback and what your idea is. So please leave a comment down below as we go through the video. I'm sure some of the things that I think about, other people are like, Chef, you're leaving this out. Please leave a comment and put that information in there so we can all learn and share. I love learning new things. So number one on the list is, when you think of your destination, how are you getting there other than on the motorcycle? What kind of route are you taking? You know, something I have to consider is, you know, are you pressed for time, and are you taking the highway, or do you have some time to have some fun and take back roads? So I'll be leaving for Michigan shortly, going on a club trip, and I'll be going up a smidge early, go visit my mom, and I'm gonna have a plan to go to Michigan. Now the plan is specifically just to leave Georgia, head up I-75, hit US 23, go to my mom's house. Kind of like a loose destination thing. I mean, if there's things that I need to see or stop and do along the way, I certainly will. I will be traveling with Colors, one of my club brothers who is a Marine Corps veteran and Army veteran, done several deployments overseas, and he's got a newer bike. He just got a 2005 Road King, so that's one of the things that I need to consider with him in our route is, you know, safely taking the highway. We may get off and do some back roads. I don't know. I'm still kind of playing around with what we're doing because we do have a little time. It is my vacation, and I've not gone on a long motorcycle trip this year, so I definitely got to make the most of it. So, what's your route? Do you have a plan? Do you know the traffic on your route and the times that you're going to pass through a specific area? So, I look at on the map where I'm going and feasibly about what time that I will pass through there. Do I have any traffic issues? I always look up, as I have been for this trip going to Michigan, looking up if there's any construction on the highway. I know that going through Cincinnati's been under perpetual construction forever, so I know that I will have construction there. Do you have to have an alternate route? Is it something you want to take back roads for? So your route becomes important, because especially if you have like a time frame of where you're going, you definitely want to maximize your time. Nobody likes sitting on a hot motorcycle in traffic, so I really like to keep moving. On this twin cam, it's air cooled, so when I get stuck in some significant traffic, it's pretty miserable. So with your route, like a lot of times if I know I'm going to hit traffic, do I have a way to get around a specific place? I will have that alternate route in my head if it's something that I know or am expecting. If not, sometimes you just got to make adjustments along the way, which I have done, and sometimes they've worked out. Sometimes I've taken a long detour and taken the really, really long way somewhere, thinking that getting out of traffic or getting on a different route would be beneficial, and it wasn't. So number 2 on this list of considerations kind of goes with your route, and it is time. So how long is it going to take you to get there? Now, one of the general rules that I always operate by, and this is just me, may not be the best, may not be the most correct, but I always go by 1.5 times the time. If I'm making a trip and planning, how far I'm going to go, if I'm expecting to stop, I always kind of try to set like a target point, get an idea of stuff in the area, hotels, that kind of stuff. But I always guesstimate the trip is going to take 1.5 times longer on the motorcycle, because you have more frequent fuel stops. And even if I ride tank to tank, you're talking 3, maybe 3.5 hours in between tanks for fuel stops. So I always consider time when I'm going on a trip as to how long it's going to take. Now, I'm kind of excited because next year I am completing a bucket list item, and I'm going to do the Sturgis trip. First time ever, so I'm going to be doing some research, but I've already started planning that trip and kind of where I'm going to be and how long it's going to take and things that I want to do. So time is always a consideration in traveling. So along with time, one of my recommendations to you is number 3 on my list, and that is fuel. You're like, Chef, there's fuel stops everywhere. Yep, I know, but where are those fuel stops at? I've had instances where years ago Mrs. Chef and I were riding out to New York for a club function, and she was on a Sportster. On the way back, I thought I had planned out my fuel stops adequately, and where we were at, there was no fuel, so it did get kind of hairy there for a second. We did make it, but it was concerning for a second as to, fuel being there and her having a Sportster and a small tank, whether we were going to make it or not. So, with fuel, that's one of the things you got to think about is, who are you traveling with? What kind of fuel capacity do they have on their motorcycle? Because definitely, riding with a Sportster, you're talking about 100 miles on a tank. So you're stopping every 100 miles. So that is exponentially going to change your time. and you have to have those considerations, because depending on where you are, if you're in a desolate part of the United States, or Canada for that matter, do you have fuel stops that you're going to be able to reach in that distance? Now, when Colors and I go to Michigan, he has a 5-gallon tank. So, as the lead rider of us two going up, I need to consider that he's going to have to stop for fuel, have less distance, so the fuel stops are going to need to be a little bit sooner than I would normally go, because I have a 6-gallon tank. So, got to make those considerations. You got to have a plan, and fuel is super important. I always look at too, when I'm traveling on a long distance trip, what is my fuel consumption and how am I doing where I'm going. So I know, when you go up and down the mountains, that's going to change your fuel consumption versus if you're just traveling somewhere flat, or if you go through someplace windy, like we're going to be going through Ohio, which most of Ohio is completely flat. So that is a consideration with fuel in the wind. So you always got to really look at that. Now, I know some people who plan out a trip so intricately that they have a targeted fuel stop specifically, and they look at how much fuel is going to cost in budgeting for the trip, and I completely understand that 100%. I just can't operate to that specific minuteness in the detail in what I'm doing. All right, number 4 on the list of long distance trip considerations is one of my least favorite things to think about, and that is the weather. So now that we've got where we're going, how we're getting there, how long is it going to take, and my fuel consumption, I got to think about the weather, because weather becomes an important factor in how you got to pack and what kind of stuff you're going to take with you. So right now it is summertime. It's been damn brutally hot down here, and even in the north, it's been super hot. So that's something that you need to consider, is how you're going to dress, what time of year it is. You got to know where you're going. Some people just don't consider that, when they leave home, they know what their weather is here, but where are you physically going? What's the weather going to be like? So check the weather and get an idea. You definitely don't want to go somewhere in the mountains expecting it to be hot, and you get up there and the temperature drops into the 40s and 50s, and you don't have any different riding gear, and then you get cold. That would suck. So consider your weather. I always bring rain gear with me when I go on a long distance trip. It's kind of inevitable at some point you're going to hit rain. If you have one of those trips where you don't hit rain, that is super awesome. I love those trips. They're my favorite. So I always bring rain gear, but I always consider what the weather is, where I'm going, and I've already looked at the weather for my trip. We may hit some rain. Obviously, it's still a little too early in the forecast to make that consideration, but you got to look at the weather, what kind of stuff you're going to do. One of my best suggestions to you is dress in layers. It's easy that way, especially if you start out and it's cool in the morning or down outright cold, that you have extra layers on to keep yourself warm. As the day heats up, you can always strip down. Definitely makes things easier for you throughout the day, and that's usually how I operate. So I'll wear my mesh jacket. If it's cold, I'll put a flannel underneath it. Have maybe a couple of different jackets, some different gloves just in case. I always pack extra gloves, because if it rains, your gloves are going to get soaked. And I definitely am a fan of riding with gloves, so I always bring an extra pair too. Do you need to bring different colored visors for your helmet, or different colored glasses? Are you going to be out riding at night and need clears? So the weather is a huge consideration in your trip, how you're going, and like I said, specifically how you're going to pack. Now, being that it's super sunny and hot out, I would suggest wearing some kind of UV protective, like Under Armour or something. It definitely beats applying sunblock all the time and feel like you're cooking. and allows the wind to go through, but it offers you that protection. So I'll be bringing some longer sleeve Under Armour stuff with me on the trip, just simply so that I can strip down and, you know, still have some protection from the sun. Other than the weather, it's always important to consider what you're going to pack. So that's the next item on our list, is what stuff do you need to bring? How much do you need to bring? How long are you going to be gone? As a general rule, I'll bring one pair of jeans for every 2 days that I'm going to be gone on a trip. Underwear, socks for each day, t-shirt for each day, and depending on how long I'm going to be gone, it may be a consideration that I have to do laundry, because it is difficult to pack a huge amount of stuff on your bike with everything that you're taking. Now, along with that, I will offer you a nice suggestion that I learned from my best friend John years ago when I went on my first long distance trip with him. Is if you're going to like a rally or a location, you're probably going to buy some shirts, so you don't need to pack as many t-shirts. And man, it would have just never dawned on me. Yeah, I know I buy t-shirts when I go to rallies or maybe something cool to see at a dealership, but I would have just never thought about, hey, don't bring extra shirts, you know, a shirt for every day, because you're going to buy shirts along the way, so you can always use those shirts. Ever since I've learned that principle, I operate by that principle, and I bring less stuff with me, and I always buy shirts, and I always have enough. So it ends up working out. When you're packing your gear, you got to consider how much space that you have and where you're going to put your stuff. I mean, if you don't have a bagger, you got to be creative. You know, some people operate by the, I'm just going to bring one pair of jeans and a couple of shirts and some underwear and just make do. And certainly that's cool. I've gone on shorter trips where I've done that. But, you know, you got to consider what it is that you're going to bring. You know, me going on this trip, I know I'm going to want to have some shorts when I'm hanging out and some other shoes other than my riding boots. So I will have to bring that stuff with me. Are you going to a hotel where they have a pool? Or are you going to be hanging out in the pool? What a dickhead. Blowing grass out in the road. You know, if you're going to be going to hotels or pools, you're going to want to take a dip. I always bring swim trunks with me if that's the case, so that I am adequately prepared. Next thing on the list is what kind of ancillary stuff am I going to bring? And I mean, you got to keep in mind things that you're going to need along the way, like tools. I always carry a tool kit with me. I always have a tire inflator and a tire plug kit with me, and I always have a jump pack with me. So, you know, if the battery dies, I always have a jump pack where I don't have to worry about jumper cables and that kind of stuff. So always consider what kind of other things that you're going to bring with you. The next consideration I would give you is, where are you putting things on your bike to make them accessible, specifically like rain gear. When I carry my rain gear, I always carry my rain gear on the right side of a motorcycle, because if I stop at a bridge, you know, or someplace to put my rain gear on, I want it easily accessible to me, quick and easy, without having to go to the left side of the motorcycle if I'm on the highway. Don't want to put myself out in traffic. So you really need to consider where you're going to put your stuff on your bike and how often you're going to need those items. So that completes my little list for you today. I know there's some stuff out there that I didn't put on the list, and you have some great ideas. Share a comment down below. Help us all out. I love learning new things, and I, you know, make it a goal to learn something new every day. So help me out. Teach me something new. Give me some of your advice. Until next time, guys, I appreciate you stopping by. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Help the channel grow. And as always, when you're out riding free, it's because somebody has sacrificed and put themselves out there to be able to do that. So let's give them a thank you when we have the opportunity. Until next time, we'll catch you later.